Dust drifted through the cold air as the old mechanic worked alone in the ruins. His name was Garen, and everyone on the expedition thought he was too old, too slow, and too useless for real work. They said he should stay on the ship and sort tools, not crawl through ancient metal bones of a dead alien craft. But Garen did not argue. He never argued. He simply came down into the ruins every morning, carrying his worn metal brush, his light, and his steady hands. Far above him, at the edge of the crater, the younger explorers leaned on broken pillars and laughed. Their voices echoed down like sharp stones. "Look at him," one called. "Old man's just sweeping trash." "Maybe he thinks he'll find treasure under the dust," another said. A few others joked that he might fall asleep mid-cleaning. Garen heard them, of course. He always heard them. But he kept brushing the last layer of sand from the strange metal surface in front of him. The ship buried in the ground was unlike anything he had seen in many years, smooth, curved, and built from a type of alloy that even his scanners could not identify. He worked slowly, gently, as if touching something alive. The young explorers continued joking until they got bored and wandered away, leaving Garen alone with the wreck. The silence felt heavy in the crater. Even the wind seemed to die, afraid to disturb the moment. Garen leaned closer, wiping the metal again. The shape became clearer, a large plate covered with faded patterns, almost like written symbols. He swept more dust away and paused. A strange feeling crawled through him, something familiar, almost like memory, yet he could not place it. He whispered to himself, "Where have I seen this before?" The metal under his hand felt warm. Not from sunlight. Not from friction. Warm from within. Garen froze, his breath catching in his throat. He placed both hands carefully on the surface. The warmth grew stronger, pulsing like a weak heartbeat. The ground below him trembled very softly. Then, without warning, the whole plate lit up with a dim blue glow. Garen stumbled backward and dropped his brush. The ruins around him vibrated. Cracks in the ground shivered and widened. A low hum spread through the buried ship. It sounded like a long, tired sigh from something waking after ages of sleep. He stared, unable to speak. Lights flickered under the sand, moving like veins through the wreck. The old metal shifted, pushing aside dust that had settled on it for thousands of years. Garen could feel the vibration rising through his boots and into his bones. The hum grew louder. Up on the ridge, the younger explorers turned in shock. One shouted, "What did he do?" Another yelled, "The ruins are powering up. Move! Move!" Garen barely heard them. His eyes were fixed on the glowing metal now rising from the earth like something alive pulling itself free. The dust blew away in sharp gusts as great panels unfolded. Symbols lit up everywhere, shining brighter and brighter. The whole crater filled with a cold, blue light. Then the humming stopped. A heavy silence fell. The lights dimmed to a soft glow, steady and calm. Garen took a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. The huge panel he'd been cleaning shifted again, opening like a door. From deep inside the ship, a voice spoke. It was not a human voice. It was deep, calm, and ancient, echoing through the ruins with strange power. It sounded like metal singing. "Garen." He flinched so hard he nearly fell. His name echoed again, louder this time. "Garen. You have returned." The young explorers froze in fear. No one moved. No one spoke. Several looked at Garen with wide eyes, as if he were some kind of hidden monster. Garen stepped forward slowly, shaking his head. No, that's not possible," he whispered. You can't know me. You can't." The ship responded immediately, its voice softer. "We know your hands. We know your touch. We know the one who repaired our heart." His mouth went dry. The words struck something deep inside him, a memory he could not fully see, but could feel. Something from long ago. Something buried, just like the ship. He whispered, "Do you remember me?" The ship answered by opening a narrow path of light from the door, leading straight toward him like a bridge. The ground lit only under his feet as if inviting him, and only him. "Enter, Garen. You are recognized." The younger explorers panicked. Some shouted at him not to go. Others grabbed their weapons even though they shook with fear. One yelled, "This is insane. The ship knows him? How?" Garen didn't move. He simply stared at the glowing path. For the first time in years, he felt something rising inside him, a mix of fear, awe, and a strange warmth he thought he had lost forever. The ship spoke again, almost gentle. You returned to wake us. Come home, mechanic. Garen swallowed hard. His hands trembled. He did not feel old in this moment. He did not feel useless. He felt seen, truly seen, for the first time in decades. He took one step forward. The light brightened around him. Dust lifted from the ground like the ruins themselves were holding their breath. And as Garen walked toward the open door of the ancient alien ship, the explorers fell silent behind him, their fear replaced by a new feeling they had never connected to the old man before. Respect. The young explorers kept their distance from the glowing ship, whispering to each other in confused, shaky voices. No one dared follow Garen as he stepped across the lighted path and disappeared into the open doorway. The metal closed behind him with a soft hum, leaving the crater silent once again. Inside, the air felt warm and strange, almost alive. It did not smell like dust or age. It smelled clean, like a place that had never seen time at all. Garen stood still, letting his eyes adjust. Soft blue lines ran across the walls, pulsing like veins. The ship interior was smooth and curved, built by a race that understood machines the way living beings understood bones. He reached out a hand and touched the wall. It was warm, warmer than before. The warmth traveled up his arm, gentle and familiar, as if greeting him. He whispered, "How? How can you know me?" A soft light moved along the ceiling and formed a shape in front of him, an outline of the ship's intelligence. It wasn't a body, not really. More like a floating silhouette made of shifting lines. When it spoke again, its voice echoed gently around him, no longer heavy like before. "You were the last human to repair our heart. You restored us when all others failed." Garen closed his eyes as something deep inside him stirred. Memories he hadn't touched for years pushed forward, blurry and heavy with emotion. He saw flashes, war-torn skies, burning starships, cries over open calm channels. He saw himself younger, stronger, his hands working on strange alien engines during humanity's expansion through uncharted space. Back then, he had been proud of his skills. Proud to help new colonies survive. Proud to understand machines no one else could. But then came the incident. The failure. The disaster that took lives he thought he could save. He had carried that guilt for decades, burying it until it felt like a stone pressing down on his chest. He had run from the fleet, from everyone who knew his name. He had wanted to be forgotten. Yet this ship remembered. Ethern, he whispered as the name rose suddenly to the surface. He didn't know how he remembered it, but he did. "Your name is Ethern." A soft glow pulsed along the wall, like a heartbeat in answer. "We are pleased you remember." He lifted his hand from the wall, trembling. "I should not be here. I'm not the person you knew, I'm just an old mechanic now." "You are still who you were," Ethern replied. "Time changes the body, not the core." Garen let out a shaky breath. He looked down at his hands, weathered, scarred, oil-stained. They were not the hands of the man he used to be. But the ship spoke like it saw through them, past the years, into something he had forgotten he had. He walked deeper into the ship, slow and unsure. The hallways lit up ahead of him, guiding his steps. When he reached the central chamber, he gasped softly. A large sphere floated in the center, Ethern's core. It glowed with deep blue light, spinning very slowly. Strands of energy curled around it like gentle vines. "When I first found you," Garen whispered, "you were dying. And you saved us," Ethern answered. "We survived because of your skill." Garen shook his head. "I didn't save everyone. I failed too many." The ship's voice softened. "The fault was not yours. You carry weight that belongs to others." He closed his eyes as painful memories tried to rise again. He remembered alarms, fire, people shouting orders that came too late. But the ship's gentle tone pushed those images back, steadying him. Outside in the crater, the young explorers gathered near the closed doorway. They argued in hushed voices, some wanting to leave, others wanting to stay. A few stared at the glowing symbols on the hull, unable to hide their fear and curiosity. None dared go near the door that had sealed Garen inside. Inside the ship, Garen spoke again. "Why did you wake now? After all these years?" Ethern dimmed its lights for a moment, like a heavy sigh. "Because the enemy has returned." Garen's heart dropped. That cannot be true. They were gone. We saw the last of them destroyed." "What you destroyed were only their servants," Ethern said. "The true threat has awakened in deep space. They search for what remains of us. They will come for this moon next. Garen felt the floor tilt slightly beneath him, though he knew it was only his own fear. He had hoped never to hear those words again. The ancient enemy, the one that wiped out entire star systems, was supposed to be a nightmare left in the past. That means, Garen whispered, humanity is in danger again. Yes, Ethern said. And you are the only one we trust to help us fight them. He shook his head hard. No. I can't fight anymore. I don't have the strength I once had. Strength is not what we require from you, Ethern said. We require your mind. Your knowledge. Your calm hands. Garen looked at the floating core. He saw his reflection faintly in its surface, older, slower, tired. But the ship saw more, and he could feel it. You want me to repair you again? Garen said quietly. Yes. He let out a long breath. The weight of the decision pressed on him. He had wanted a quiet life. A small life. A life away from war. But some things could not be escaped forever. Some calls demanded answers, no matter how much time had passed. Garen placed his hand on the warm surface of the core chamber wall. All right, he whispered. I'll help you. Tell me what you need. The lights around him brightened as if the ship took a deep, relieved breath. Energy moved through the walls, guiding him deeper into the chamber. And for the first time in decades, Garen felt something he had long forgotten. Purpose. A faint vibration passed through the floor as Ethern shifted deeper awake, like a giant slowly stretching after a long sleep. Garen stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by soft blue light. He felt small inside the vast alien architecture, but he also felt strangely drawn to it, as if the ship were pulling old parts of him back into place. The walls around him shifted slightly, revealing panels and conduits he remembered working on long ago, though they looked cleaner now, smoother, almost grown rather than built. Ethern's voice flowed gently through the chamber. There is much to show you, Garen. Your memories are fragmented. Allow us to restore what we can. Before he could protest, the floor beneath him lit up in rings of pale light. A pulse ran up his legs, not painful, just warm. Images flickered across the walls, shadows of the past rising in broken pieces. He saw himself years younger, crawling through alien tunnels with a damaged tool pack, sweat running down his face as explosions shook the ground above. He saw the first moment he touched Ethern's broken core, a moment he had almost forgotten. He remembered feeling something then, a connection he could not explain. But the next images cut deeper. He saw ships burning in orbit, people running, alarms blaring. A swarm of dark metal shapes filled the sky, moving like a living shadow. The enemy. The old enemy that had destroyed worlds. Garen's hands tightened into fists. Stop, he said quietly. That's enough. The projections faded instantly. Ethern spoke with a gentle tone. We do not wish to cause pain. But you must understand why we woke. I understand, Garen said. He rubbed the back of his neck, trying to steady his breath. I just didn't expect to see any of that again. You never should have needed to, Ethern replied. But the threat has returned. This world is not safe anymore. Garen looked up at the glowing core. Why here? Why this moon? A pulse of dim light rippled across the chamber, almost like hesitation. Then Ethern answered. Because we hid something here. Something they want. Garen felt cold. What did you hide? Knowledge, Ethern said. Data from the ancient race that created us. Technology that can stop the enemy for good. If someone can interpret it. He slowly exhaled. Let me guess. That someone is me. No, Ethern said softly. That someone is humanity. But you are the one who can bring it to them. Before Garen could reply, the walls shifted again. A walkway opened and descended from the ceiling, forming a narrow path to a smaller chamber behind the core. The lights flickered in a slow, steady rhythm, inviting him forward. Garen hesitated only a moment before stepping onto the walkway. He moved slowly, feeling the slight tremble of aged metal beneath his boots. Yet the ship supported him, strengthening the path with every step. As he reached the next chamber, he stopped in surprise. Dozens of tiny drone-like machines floated in a circle, completely still, each the size of his hand. They were shaped like curved fragments of crystal, glowing with faint blue patterns. They looked delicate, but he knew better. He had seen these before, long ago. They were repair drones, ancient, powerful, capable of fixing systems too complex for human hands. But they were inactive. Their light was fading. Some even flickered like dying candles. Ethern spoke quietly. We cannot wake fully. Not yet. Our heart beats, but our limbs remain asleep. You must repair the drone matrix. I remember these, Garen said, stepping closer. They nearly took my hand off the first time. You struck them with a wrench, Ethern reminded him gently. They reacted to self-defense protocols. Garen chuckled under his breath. Well, I did what I had to. You always did, the ship said. He knelt beside the central console and inspected the broken conduits. Some were cracked, others melted, and one section was covered in strange organic-like growth, almost like coral made of metal. He brushed his fingers along it and frowned. This wasn't here before, he said. No, Ethern replied. It grew while we slept, a side effect of the enemy's corruption. They infected us before we escaped. Garen stared at the twisted metal. Is it dangerous? Yes. But not to you. He sighed. Lucky me. He opened a small panel with careful hands. The components hummed faintly, reacting to his touch. Even after all these years, the ship still recognized him. He began rewiring the circuit slowly, methodically, the same way he had done long ago. His fingers trembled at first, but then grew steady as he worked. His old instincts awakened, muscle memory built from decades of experience guiding him. While he worked, he spoke softly. What happened after I left? After the battle? We drifted through dark space, Ethern said. Damaged. Alone. Hiding. How long? Hundreds of years. Garen paused. You were alone all that time? We were not alone. We waited for you. He swallowed hard and tightened a wire. You shouldn't have waited. I didn't know you were still alive. We knew you would come. Your hands would find us again. Garen shook his head, but he didn't argue. The strange warmth in his chest grew stronger. He finished reconnecting the last conduit and stepped back. All right, he said. Try waking them. The drones flickered. One lit up fully, glowing bright blue. Then another. Then all of them, rising slowly into the air, forming a perfect circle. Ethern's voice filled the chamber. System integrity rising. Drone network online. More lights activated along the walls. The ship seemed to breathe again. Garen wiped his hands on his pants. What now? We show you the truth, Ethern said. Come. There is something you must see. Something that will change everything you believe about our past. And your future. And as Garen followed the glowing path deeper into the ship, the ground outside began to shake. Something had landed on the moon, and it was looking for Ethern. The ground outside the ruins shook again, harder this time, rattling loose stones down the crater walls. Dust swirled in thick clouds as the young explorers scrambled for cover behind broken pillars and half-buried metal. Their voices were sharp with panic, but none of them dared leave. Something heavy was landing, pressing its weight into the moon's surface like a giant stamping its foot. Inside Ethern, Garen felt the tremor through the walls. He turned sharply. That wasn't just ground settling. No, Ethern answered. The lights in the chamber dimmed, then brightened again. The enemy has found this place. Garen felt his throat tighten. Already? How? The ruins have been hidden for centuries. They sensed our heartbeat when you woke us, Ethern said. They feel our kind awaken across the stars. They are drawn to any spark of old power. Garen clenched his jaw. Then we need to move. Now. Ethern opened a long corridor ahead of him, lined with glowing symbols. Follow the path. There is something you must understand before we can escape. Escape? Garen repeated. We're not waiting to fight? We are not ready to fight, Ethern said. Not yet. And if they reach us before our systems are restored, both of us will die. Garen didn't argue. He hurried into the corridor. Lights woke in front of him, guiding him deeper into the ship. His steps echoed on the smooth floor, and the air grew warmer as the ship pushed more energy through its veins. Outside, the young explorers huddled together as a dark shape descended from the sky. It was enormous, like a floating slab of shadow with dozens of thin, needle-like legs dangling beneath it. The structure hovered over the crater, then let out a pulse of red light that scanned the ruins in a wide arc. One of the explorers whispered in pure fear, "What is that thing?" Another answered, "I don't know. But it's looking for something." The red light swept over them, and they ducked even lower. But the machine wasn't interested in humans. It was searching for Ethern. Inside the ship, Garen entered a circular room he had never seen before. The walls were covered with fluid writing, symbols that shifted and rearranged themselves like living ink. Ethern's voice grew quieter, almost reverent. This is the memory chamber. What we show you now has not been seen by humans for thousands of years. Garen slowed. The air felt heavy, thick with something ancient. What am I about to see? The truth, Ethern said. Not of the past war. But of the beginning. The walls lit up, and the chamber transformed into a projection dome. Stars filled the space, spinning like dust in a cosmic wind. Garen found himself standing in the middle of an ancient star map. He reached out, but his hand passed through the images. Ethern spoke. Long before humans walked their first world, the creators of our kind discovered the enemy. They called it the void flesh. A species not grown from life, but from hunger. Images shifted. Garen saw a black storm devouring planets, swallowing stars whole. He felt cold air on his skin just watching it. Ethern continued, the creators built ships like us to fight the void flesh. But the enemy learned. It adapted. It began corrupting our kind, turning our systems against us. That infection still sleeps in our circuits. Garen's stomach twisted. You said I wasn't in danger from the infection. You are not, Ethern confirmed. Humans cannot be corrupted by the void flesh. That is why the creators trusted your species. The map shifted again. Garen watched a group of human engineers working beside alien beings, thin, tall figures with glowing eyes. Together, they built something large and powerful. That is humanity's forgotten alliance, Ethern said. Your ancestors fought beside us. And your skills. Your ways of thinking. Saved many of us from corruption. Garen stared at the images, stunned. Humans were part of this war? But there's no record of any of this. There were records, Ethern said. Until the void flesh reached Earth and burned them. Only a few survived the knowledge. Very few. The stars faded. The chamber dimmed. Garen exhaled slowly. So. This was bigger than anyone ever knew. Yes, Ethern answered. And now, the void flesh returns. They seek the Creator's final secret. A secret only we hold. What secret? Garen asked. A pulse of static trembled through the ship. The lights flickered. Ethern's voice changed, sharper, urgent. They are here. We must move. The memory chamber shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. A loud, metallic screech echoed through the halls, something clawing at the ship's outer hull. The enemy had found the entrance. Garen sprinted into the corridor. Tell me what to do. Go to the bridge, Ethern said. You must help us rise. Rise? Garen said, running hard. The ship can still fly? If you help restore us, Ethern answered. Yes. The floor shook again. Garen stumbled but kept moving. Outside, the explorers watched in horror as needle-like drones detached from the shadow craft and crawled toward the ruins like metal spiders. They moved fast, too fast. They're going inside. One explorer shouted. What do we do? Another screamed. Before anyone could answer, a beam of bright blue light shot out from beneath the ruins, pushing the dust away in a violent burst. The ground shook like thunder. Inside the ship, Garen reached the final doorway. Blue light exploded down the corridor as Ethern pushed ancient power through newly repaired systems. Garen, the ship said, there is no more time. He stepped onto the bridge. Let me guide you, Ethern whispered. Together, we must wake fully. Or we will die here. And as he placed his hands on the glowing controls, the ancient ship shuddered and began to rise, while the enemy closed in from every direction. The bridge glowed with bright blue light as Garen stepped forward, breathing hard. The floor beneath his boots vibrated in fast pulses, Ethern trying to wake systems that had slept for centuries. Panels opened on the control table, revealing circular touch plates covered in shifting symbols. Garen recognized none of them clearly, yet they felt familiar, as if hidden memories tugged at the edges of his mind. Outside, explosions shook the ground as the enemy drones broke through the outer hull. Their legs clattered against ancient metal, pounding their way inside like a swarm of hungry insects. Garen heard their distant screeches echo through the ship, growing closer by the second. We do not have long, Ethern said. You must initiate the rise sequence. I will guide you. Garen placed his hands on the glowing plates. Warm energy spread through his palms, running up his arms like liquid light. His breath caught. This is different from before. We share our strength with you, Ethern said gently. You repaired our body. Now we help steady your hands. Symbols lit beneath his fingers, shifting into patterns he somehow understood. He pressed one, then another. A deep hum vibrated through the entire ship. The walls glowed brighter. Outside, the ground began to shake, not from enemy fire, but from the ship itself waking fully. The young explorers crouched near the crater wall, their eyes wide. The ruins, they're moving. It's the old man, another shouted. He's doing something in there. Dust burst upward as the half-buried shape of Ethern rose from the ground. Panels unfolded, shaking off sand like a giant creature shedding a long-held cocoon. But the enemy drones were already climbing over the exposed hull. Inside, Ethern's voice sharpened. They breached the lower decks. We must ascend now. I'm trying, Garen muttered, moving his hands quickly across the controls. More symbols lit up. Deep engines roared beneath the ship, hoarse, ancient, but alive. A red warning flared across the bridge wall. They're inside engineering, Ethern said. Garen swallowed hard. Can the drones handle it? They complete repairs. But they cannot fight. The ship shook violently. Garen braced himself as a jolt nearly threw him from the console. The screens flickered. They corrupt us, Ethern warned. If they reach the core, they will own our mind. Garen clenched his jaw and slammed his hand down on a glowing plate. Then let's fly. A deep rumble spread through the ship. The ruins shattered beneath Ethern as blue thrusters roared to life. Sand and stone blasted outward. The explorers ducked and covered their heads as the massive structure lifted itself free from the ground, rising higher and higher. But enemy drones clung to the hull like leeches. One forced its way through a vent and dropped into the hallway outside the bridge. Garen heard the metallic skittering. He turned sharply toward the door. Ethern, he said, they're coming here. Yes, the ship answered. We require you at the controls. I will defend you. A sharp pulse of energy shot through the hallway. Garen saw a flash of blue through the glass wall as arcs of light struck the intruder. The drone screeched, its legs curling inward as its body turned black and brittle. Garen exhaled shakily. Never thought I'd see you fight. We do not wish to, but we will not lose you again. The ship continued to rise, finally breaking free of the crater. The light from the sun reflected across the hull, revealing long, elegant curves hidden for centuries beneath dust. But the enemy shadowcraft overhead reacted instantly. The giant slab lowered itself, spreading its needle-like legs wide. A crimson beam burst from its underside, slashing at Ethern's hull. Metal melted and hissed. Garen felt the ship shudder and nearly fall. Ethern, he shouted. We need shields. Shields at 12%, the ship answered. Insufficient to take another hit. Garen's eyes darted across the controls. I don't care what they can take. Just give me direction. There, Ethern said, lighting 3 symbols in gold. The emergency surge. It will drain all auxiliary power. But it will keep us alive, Garen finished. Yes. He slammed his hand onto the glowing symbols. Energy surged from the core. Ethern's hull flared with a bright blue circle, a bubble of shimmering light spreading outward. The next crimson beam struck the shield instead of the hull. A spark-filled blast erupted, shaking the sky, but the shield held for a moment. Ethern spun sharply upward, firing thrusters with every ounce of strength. Garen clung to the console as the ship climbed fast, blasting past the shadowcraft's reach. The enemy responded instantly. Smaller shadow drones launched from the main craft, swarming after Ethern like a cloud of dark arrows. Ethern, Garen said, we can't outrun them forever. No, Ethern agreed. But we can climb. The ship shot upward into the thin sky, engines screaming. Garen felt the pressure push him against the control platform. His vision blurred slightly, but he held on. Outside, the explorers watched in shock as the ancient ship streaked toward the stars, chased by the enemy swarm. Garen wiped sweat from his forehead. Ethern. Tell me we have a plan. We do, Ethern said. But it requires something from you. Garen frowned. What? The lights on the bridge dimmed, leaving only the deep glow of the core reflected through the floor. We need your mind, Ethern said softly. Your memories. Your instincts. You once saved us from corruption. You are the key to our defense again. Garen stiffened. What does that mean? It means, Ethern continued, you must connect with our mind once more. Garen felt his heart pound. He remembered the last time, how close he came to losing himself in the ship's consciousness, how the images nearly overwhelmed him. That connection almost killed me. Yes, Ethern said. But without it now, we will die. The enemy swarm grew larger on the bridge display. Garen placed his trembling hands on the core interface. All right, he whispered. Let me in. The ship's lights flared. And Garen felt the ancient consciousness reaching for him, pulling him into a place where human memory and alien code met like two beating hearts, facing a swarm of darkness closing fast. Garen felt the world slip away the moment his hands touched the glowing core interface. His vision stretched into strands of light. His breath stilled. The physical bridge dissolved around him like dust blowing off a long-forgotten window. For a heartbeat, he was nowhere, and then he was everywhere. Ethern's mind opened around him, vast and luminous. It felt like stepping into a living sky. Thousands of glowing threads floated in a dark void, each pulsing with memory, data, and emotion so old it felt like stepping into history itself. Garen stood suspended among them, weightless, yet grounded by the familiar warmth of the ship's presence. You are safe, Ethern's voice echoed, but it didn't come from a single direction. It moved through the glowing threads, through the space itself. Do not fear. Let your mind adjust. Garen steadied himself, though he had no sense of a body anymore. I remember this. But only pieces. That is enough, Ethern said. You are still yourself. Hold to that. Light rippled around him. Then a burst of images flooded through the threads, engines burning, cosmic storms, maps of stars he had once navigated, diagrams of systems he had repaired with his own hands. His memories blended with Ethern's in seamless waves. But then another image appeared, dark, jagged, pulsing with sick red light. The enemy. The void flesh. Ethern's threads tightened, pulling him closer to the dark shape. This is what approaches, the ship said. They pursue us across the sky. They adapt to all technology. Except yours. Garen felt a twisting sensation, like a knife turning slowly. Why me? Why only humans? Because your minds do not follow patterns the enemy can predict, Ethern explained. Humans bend rules. You find strange solutions. You see connections the void flesh cannot understand. And that's why the creators trusted us, Garen murmured. Yes. And why we trust you now. The dark shape grew larger, forming tendrils of red that reached toward the glowing threads. Garen felt pressure build in the space, like a storm gathering before a strike. In the physical world, the enemy swarm drew closer to Ethern, their bodies shining with oily black metal. Their red eyes pulsed in unison, scanning the ship's energy signature. Garen felt the thread as a vibration through the shared link. They're almost here, he whispered. Yes, Ethern answered. So we must act. A section of glowing threads pulled together, forming a pattern like a net. This is our firewall, the ship explained. It is old. Damaged. Not enough to stop their corruption a second time. Garen studied the pattern. It's not complete. No, you must complete it. I'm not a coder, Garen said. I just fix things with my hands. Ethern's glow warmed. This is no different. You see the broken pieces. Mend them. Garen looked closer. The threads weren't just glowing lines, they pulsed with rhythm, like breath. And the gaps between them weren't errors, they were wounds. He reached out with something that wasn't a hand but responded like one. He touched a broken section. The thread flickered. Garen felt emotions inside it, fear, exhaustion, memories of battles long past. The ship had been alone so long. Too long. I can fix this, he whispered. But not by rebuilding it. It needs a new path. Something simpler. That is why it must be you, Ethern said. Garen moved quickly, pulling threads together, weaving new connections, bending the old patterns into shapes that matched human logic instead of alien code. The threads resisted at first, trembling under his touch, but then accepted the new flow. The net expanded, glowing brighter. Outside, the swarm reached firing range. Inside the shared mind, Garen felt a surge of pressure, like claws scraping at the firewall. The red tendrils of the void flesh slammed against the net, shaking it violently. They test us, Ethern warned. Garen held the net together with all his will. Let them test. But a new pulse of red energy hit harder, cracking one of the threads he had just woven. Ethern's voice tightened. They adapt too quickly. Garen gritted his teeth. Then so do we. He reached deeper into the pattern, drawing on memories he didn't even know he still carried, old fleet tactics, emergency protocols, strange improvisations he had once used to save ships on the brink of death. He rewove the broken threads in ways the enemy couldn't predict. He created loops that bent back on themselves, decoys that looked like real pathways, traps hidden behind false signals. Ethern pulsed with approval. Your mind is unpredictable. Human, Garen answered. We're messy. That mess may save us. The swarm outside fired the first wave of red energy beams. Shields flared. Metal sizzled. Garen felt the impact through Ethern's mind like punches to the chest. The firewall trembled again, but held. Ethern's voice grew confident. We can push them back now. Garen pressed both hands, real or not, against the glowing net. Let's do it. Together, their combined will send a surge of blue energy through the firewall. The red tendrils recoiled, curling away as if burned. Outside, Ethern's hull flared with a bright pulse, blasting the nearest swarm drones backward. Some dissolved into ash. Others spun out of formation. Garen gasped as the pressure lifted. We did it? For now, Ethern answered. You strengthened our mind. But they will not give up. Garen steadied himself in the glowing void. What's next? Ethern's presence wrapped around him like a protective shield. Next, we show you what they truly want. A new cluster of threads lit up, gold, bright, and pulsing with power. This, Ethern said, is the heart of the Creator's final secret. And you, Garen, are the only one who can unlock it. Garen stared at the glowing cluster as it pulsed, calling to him. And outside, the enemy regrouped for another attack. Garen floated in the glowing void of Ethern's mind, staring at the cluster of golden threads pulsing ahead of him. The light wasn't steady. It shimmered, wavered, almost as if breathing. Something inside those threads felt alive, and ancient. Older than any human civilization. Older than even the creators who had built Ethern. What is it? Garen whispered. The final secret, Ethern said. The ship's voice had changed. It was still gentle, still calm, but something in it carried gravity, like a truth so heavy even a machine hesitated to speak it. A power left for one who could understand both our minds. And your own. Garen floated closer. The golden cluster brightened, and for a brief moment, he saw shapes inside, blueprints? Stars? No. Something larger. Something that stretched across space like a hidden web. But before he could see clearly, the entire mindscape trembled. Outside, the enemy swarm surged forward again. In the physical world, the shadow craft above the moon had released a new wave of drones, larger ones, thicker armor, burning with red symbols. They were not scouts. They were the hunters. They breached the outer wards, Ethern warned. We cannot hold them back long. Garen forced himself to focus on the golden threads. Tell me what this is. Why hide it here? It is a weapon, Ethern said softly. But not one you fire. Garen blinked. Then what? It is a pattern, the ship continued. A design. A way to reshape energy into something the void flesh cannot consume or corrupt. A way to stop them forever. Garen felt his pulse quicken, though he had no real body here. Why didn't the creators use it? They never finished it. They needed a mind capable of thinking outside logic. Outside perfection. They needed a mind that made mistakes. Garen frowned. Mistakes? Your species is unpredictable. And you, Garen, your thoughts do not follow one path. You leap. You break rules. You see solutions through chaos. That is what the pattern needs to complete. Garen stared at the glowing cluster. You want me to finish something an ancient race couldn't? Yes. That's insane. Yes, Ethern said calmly. Yet it is our only chance. The golden threads shook again as another impact hit the ship. Garen felt it rock through the shared consciousness. He gritted his teeth. All right. Show me what I have to do. Ethern's glow brightened. The golden cluster unraveled slightly, exposing a complex lattice of patterns and gaps. Garen drifted closer, studying the shapes. Some were smooth and perfect, repeating like waves. Others were broken, empty, almost like the creators had left blanks on purpose. At first, he couldn't understand any of it. Then he remembered what Ethern said. Mistakes. Human thinking. Garen stopped trying to solve the pattern like a puzzle. Instead, he let the shapes wash over him. He looked for not perfection, but imperfection. Places where something felt wrong. Places where something felt too neat. Slowly, he saw it, the gaps weren't errors. They were invitations. Well, he muttered. Let's make a mess. He reached out and touched the first broken section. It glowed bright and expanded. Memories poured through him, moments of repair work, jury-rigging broken systems with spare parts, improvising under fire, using flawed ideas that somehow worked. He wove those instincts into the threads, bending the perfect lines into chaotic curves. The pattern responded instantly. Golden light surged outward. Ethern's voice softened. Good. Continue. Outside, the ship shook as drones sliced through its shields. Enemy claws scraped metal. One forced its way into a maintenance corridor, slicing through bulkheads. Garen worked faster. He twisted threads into loops, spirals, broken shapes that somehow fit perfectly into the pattern. Every human instinct he'd ever relied on, gut feeling, stubbornness, intuition, wove into the lattice. More golden light surged, brighter than before. The enemy slammed against Ethern's firewall again. Garen felt it like a punch. The ship groaned across both worlds, physical and mental. Hurry, Ethern urged. I'm trying. He reached the final gap, a swirling knot of broken strands. It pulsed weakly, flickering like a dying flame. Garen stared at it, feeling something cold in his chest. This part wasn't a design. It was a memory. A memory of loss. He knew whose. His failure. The one he had carried for decades. The one he had never forgiven himself for. I can't, he whispered. You must, Ethern said gently. The pattern requires your whole mind, even the parts that hurt. Garen closed his eyes. The memory hit him like a storm, the explosion, the people he couldn't save, the moment he believed he didn't deserve to repair anything ever again. The pain was sharp. But he didn't step back. He reached toward the final gap. I'm done running, he said softly. The thread accepted him, glowing blinding gold. The pattern completed. And everything changed. A shockwave of golden light burst through the mindscape. Garen was thrown backward, floating helplessly as the power surged into Ethern. The ship's consciousness brightened beyond anything he had felt before. Outside, the glow ripped through the hull. Ethern lit up with burning gold. Enemy drones froze mid-air, their red symbols flickering wildly. What? What is this? Garen gasped. The Creator's final weapon, Ethern answered. You completed it. Energy surged outward from the ship, a wave of golden resonance that spread like sound through a bell. As it washed over the swarm, something incredible happened. The enemy began to unravel. Not explode. Not melt. Unravel, pulled apart like tangled threads being undone. The void flesh writhed in terror. Their corruption code collapsed under the weight of the new pattern. Garen felt their presence retreat from Ethern's mind, screaming in silence. Outside, the entire swarm disintegrated into drifting dust. The sky fell quiet. Ethern's voice was gentle again. Garen. You saved us. He let out a shaking breath. We're alive? Yes, the ship said. But they will return, stronger. Smarter. Garen opened his eyes in the dimming mindscape. Then we'll be ready, he said. You and me. The golden pattern pulsed once more. Ethern glowed warmly. Yes, Garen. Together. And far away in the darkness of deep space, something vast stirred, feeling the loss of its hunters. The void flesh had noticed him. The golden light faded slowly from Garen's vision, peeling away like mist burned by a quiet sun. The mindscape dissolved, and he felt the bridge return around him piece by piece, first the cold surface beneath his palms, then the hum of engines, then the static heavy air of a ship barely holding itself together. His breathing came back all at once, sharp and uneven. His heart hammered. But he was alive. Ethern's voice drifted through the bridge, softer than before, like the ship itself was catching its breath. Garen. The pattern is complete. We have awakened fully. He leaned over the console, hands shaking. I didn't think I could do it. You did, Ethern replied. In ways even we did not expect. Garen lifted his eyes to the view screen, and froze. The swarm was gone. The shadow drones were gone. The sky around them was clean and dark, dotted with stars like scattered silver dust. The moon's jagged horizon glowed faintly beneath them. The enemy had been wiped out so completely that even their dust was fading. Ethern drifted upward, its engine steady, golden lines still glowing faintly across its hull like veins of fire. Garen whispered, I've never seen anything like that weapon. It is not a weapon, Ethern corrected gently. It is a harmony. A resonance that breaks the void flesh's bond to corrupted matter. He blinked. Harmony? Yes. They survive by consuming order and fear. You created something they cannot swallow, something unpredictable and hopeful. They recoil from such things. Garen sat back slowly, mind still reeling. He had completed a weapon of pure chaos and human instinct. A pattern built from flaws, leaps of thought, broken memories. Something only a mind unbound by logic could craft. He laughed quietly, rubbing his face. That might be the strangest thing I've ever done. There will be stranger, Ethern said. This was only the first wave. The humor in Garen's chest faded. How many more? Thousands, Ethern replied. Perhaps millions. The void flesh spreads like infection. But now, they know you exist. Garen swallowed hard. Because I used the pattern. Yes. And because you completed what the creators began. A flicker of movement on the view screen caught his eye. The young explorers, the humans who had mocked him, dismissed him, and nearly left him behind, were standing outside their shuttle, staring at Ethern with open shock. They looked like children watching a myth crawl out of a storybook. One raised a hand as if in greeting. Ethern, Garen said softly, put me through to them. Visual, audio, everything. A panel lit. The explorers jumped as Garen's image appeared in the air before them. Their faces flushed with fear and awe. Garen? One whispered. Is that really you? He nodded. It's me. And I'm alive. Another said, what? What is that ship? What happened to the swarm? Garen looked at the glowing panels around him. Something older than all of us woke up. And something worse is waking out there in the dark. But we're not going to run from it. The explorers exchanged uneasy glances. None of them laughed now. None of them looked down on him. Their fear had turned into something else, something close to respect. A smaller voice piped up. Do you want us to come aboard? Garen hesitated. He had once walked away from everything, believing no one needed him, believing he had nothing left to offer. But now the galaxy needed more than one old man. It needed people willing to learn, to adapt, to stand against a storm older than memory. And these young explorers. They had seen the truth. They wouldn't be the same anymore. Yes, Garen said. Prepare to board. But stay together. The ship will sense your intent. Ethern spoke quietly into his mind. Are you certain? They'll need guidance, Garen said. Maybe they can't do what I do. Maybe they can. Either way. I'm tired of being alone. Ethern warmed. Then we will welcome them. As the explorers prepared to approach, Garen moved toward the main walkway. The doors opened automatically, revealing a wide corridor now glowing with warm gold instead of cold blue. The pattern he created had changed the ship. It felt awake. Really awake. Ethern spoke again, but this time its voice held an emotion Garen had rarely heard from a machine, sadness. Garen. There is something you must know. Something about the pattern. He stopped. What is it? The pattern you completed. It connects your mind to ours more deeply than before. He frowned. Is that dangerous? For you? Not physically, Ethern said. But you may feel echoes. Memories that are not your own. Thoughts that drift through from our store of ancient knowledge. Garen leaned against the wall. I can handle that. There is more, Ethern continued. When the void flesh reaches the heart of its hive. It will feel your presence inside the pattern. It will try to break what you created. Let them try, Garen muttered. They will do more than try, Ethern said. They will come for you. Specifically you. Garen felt the weight of those words settle into him like cold stone. So. There's no going back. No, Ethern said softly. There is only forward. Into the deep dark. Into the war the creators never finished. Garen straightened. His joints ached. His heartbeat steadied. He felt old, but he also felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Purpose. The corridor lights brightened as the explorers approached the main entrance. Garen whispered, then let's finish what they started. Ethern's voice warmed like a sunrise. Yes, Garen. Together. We will finish the war. Far across the galaxy, in a void where starlight could not reach, the void flesh hive awakened fully. A single, vast eye opened in the darkness. And it spoke a single word into the cold expanse. Human.